Welcome back again. This is Aditya. In this section, we're going to discuss about BFD or bidirectional forwarding detection. So this is the demanded video where we're going to talk about BFD. So the first question is, what is a BFD and where it is going to use or where it is usable. So BFD basically is a mechanism or a protocol used to detect failure in network in order to faster convergence. So let's discuss a little bit more about BFD. Make sure your router platform and your iOS is agree or supportable BFD. They allow to configure BFD. So a little bit more about BFD. BFD stands for bidirectional forwarding protocol, and it is a detection protocol designed to provide fast forwarding path, link detection time for all type of media, encapsulation, topologies, and routing protocol. So we can apply BFD on routing protocol as well as on first hop redundancy protocol. So in additional fast forwarding path failure detection, BFD provide a consistent failure detection method for network administrator. So in order to get faster convergence, you can use BFD inside your network. So let's discuss a little bit more about the working of BFD and restriction as well. Make sure your router has enabled Cisco Express forwarding in order to work BFD. And if you're running on platform which is 10720, you should also enable Cisco Parallel Express forwarding. And there is some sorts of restriction which I'm not going to read it out. And again, I will share the link and you can go through line by line. BFD operation. So let's discuss about how does your BFD work. So BFD provide low overhead, short duration method of detecting failure in forwarding path between two adjacency router. So this is unlike your IPSLA or RTR. In IPSLA on RTR is something different. We can monitor, we can track two different devices which is might be they are connected so far from each other. In this case they are actually peer, so make sure they are directly connected, or they may not connected directly but they are peer actually, or a neighbor you can say. So including the interface, data link, and forwarding plane. BFD is a detection protocol that enable at the interface and routing protocol level. Cisco support BFD asynchronous sync mode, which depends on sending of BFD control packet between two systems to activate and maintain neighbor session between two routers. So as I told you earlier, make sure this is going to work between two peer or two neighbor. So in order to perform BFD operation, we need to configure BFD on interface level. Then we need to enable on routing protocol or in first hop redundancy protocol. One more thing which I am like to share with you people, the timer is obviously before creating routing adjacency. If we enable BFD, they very soon going to form adjacency using BFD, and they also have some sorts of mechanism like timer, and we can tune in millisecond. So this is what the advantage. Shortly we're going to discuss more about what is different between the hello and date timer and using BFD, because we can tune hello and date timer. So negotiation, the interval and date timer is negotiable or negotiated. So basically you don't need to bother a lot. Now discuss a little bit more about how actually it works and where we need to use it. So in this topology, as we can see, suppose if we have a two router A and router B, it might be they form neighbor adjacency using OSPF, enhanced IGRP, BGP, or IS routing protocol. So it may take some time to converge if your link goes down. As we can see, in middle we have layer 1 or layer 2 kind of repeating device or a device which is connected in this topology. So it could be switch or it could be hub or something else. It depends up to the media type. In some cases we can use some sorts of optic fiber cable regenerator or repeater. So whatever you have configure your hello and date timer, then after router A come to know my neighbor is no longer available. So it is depends on the routing protocol, and you can also tune, but at least you will get a convergence message after 3 seconds, or you come to know after 3 seconds that neighbor is no longer available. If we using BFD or bidirectional forwarding protocol, within microsecond you can detect your neighbor is no longer available. This is what the advantage of using BFD. So as I told you earlier, if link went down or something goes wrong with this link, immediately they converge, means the neighbor is no longer available. So couples of other things which we're going to discuss. I think here is I need to share where we can apply this. I think we gone through it. No. In routing protocol, first hop redundancy protocol. So great. The next thing is let me show you. Yeah. So not this one actually. There we go. So we can apply BFD on BGP, enhanced IGRP, ISIS, OSPF, and HSRP. So we need to perform two tasks. So now we're going to configuration on Cisco devices. Configuration is straightforward. In my devices is already up and working. So let me bring my console window as well as topology where we're going to work with. In this topology, as we can see, I have a two router which is branch and HQ connected with the switch using F0/3 and F0/4. And before going to the actual configuration, I would like to show the version. So show version include only iOS. My branch in HQ, let me select send to all. My branch which is 15.2 as well as my headquarter it is 15.2. One more thing I would like to configure in switch. So interface range F0/3 to 4. Switch port host basically avoid listening and learning. So on port number 3 and 4 there is no longer spanning tree running over it. As per the topology, go through the configuration. So interface gig0/0 out both router, no shutdown, and then after I would like to assign IP address 1.1.1 on branch router and 1.1.2 on headquarter. So now we can check we should have connectivity from hub to branch router. Yes, there it is. And I'm also going to implement routing protocol on both router. So the network is 0.0.0.0, 0.0.0, no auto summary. So we can see the neighbor adjacency is up and working. Do so IP enhance IGRP neighbor. So network is converged now. We can see the packet is 0, which basically means enhance IGRP network is converged, and we can send packet from one end to another end. One more thing which I am like to show with you people, let me change the timestamp. So services, services timestamp log date time in millisecond, services on debug millisecond out both router. So let me copy this one, copy up over this router. This, it basically means your router going to show on your console window whatever is going within a millisecond, or if you turn on debugging, it going to show all over packet even it happening within a millisecond. So next thing, suppose what happen if I'm going to turn off one of interface which is connected to the switch. So before going to turn the interface off, let me verify CDP, so CDP neighbor. So F0/4 going to the HQ, F0/3 going to the branch. So interface F0/3 shutdown. So they may take longer time than usual, that the neighbor is no longer available. So actually I have turned off this interface. We can see now headquarter come to know after hold down timer expired that neighbor is no longer available. So we can also tune hello timers in order to get faster convergence, but still we have some limitation. Let's see, let me bring this up. So no shut down on individual interface, which is gig 0/0, IP hello interval for enhance IGRP autonomous system 1, we can select from 1 second to 65,535 seconds. So suppose if we going to take minimum, which is 1 second, and we know very well 3 hello is equal to the date. So 1 into 3 is equal to 3 seconds. So the minimum hello which we can tune up to 1 second. So it may take 3 seconds to get converged your network. So because we know uh, as I turn off this link, your headquarter assume that since my layer 1 and layer 2 is up, I'm not going to understand that network is, or my neighbor is no longer accessible until and unless my hold down timer going to expire. This is the problem. So what we can do, we can implement BFD over this interface. So the configuration is straightforward. We need to execute command BFD on interface interval in what millisecond. Notice that we're going to select in millisecond, which is more efficient than second. So 50 and minimum receiving. So I am also going to agree with receive update from the neighbor within 50 millisecond, but you don't need to bother about timer, because as I told you earlier, whatever is the minimum timer of particular peer, they're going to negotiate. And finally multiplier, which basically means hold down timer. So in this case I'm going to use 3, you can put 2 as well. So if I'm not listening to hello messages from the neighbor three time I will consider neighbor is down. So it's not going to take millisecond event to inform the interface is down or neighbor is no longer accessible, I should say. So once we enable this on interface, we also need to enable on routing table as well. Sorry, inside routing. So in this case, we have a router enhance IGRP autonomous system 1, BFD, and then we have two options. We can enable it on all interface or specific interface. In my case, this is gig 0/0. So router enhance IGRP autonomous system 1, BFD interface gig 0/0. Now we can verify the neighbor adjacency or BFD neighbor adjacency. Do so BFD neighbor. We can see we do have a neighbor adjacency between branch router and headquarter. So now what happens if I am going to turn off one of interface? As soon as I turn off interface, now they come to know the neighbor is goes down using the BFD. So you can see using BFD, now it notified peer or neighbor is no longer accessible or down. So let me bring it again. You can also use some sorts of debugging command like debug BFD, BFD what? Events or packets. In my case, I'm going to use event. And make sure your services, I think I have enabled services timestamp debug date time within millisecond. Now interface is up, I think, no shutdown. And we do have neighbor adjacency. Do so IP enhance IGRP neighbor. Excuse me. I need to remove do from here, which is up. So let me bring this time, turn this interface off, which is F0/3. Interface F0/3 shut. As we can see, as we executed command immediately your headquarter come to know by the BFD the neighbor is no longer available. So BFD we can configure over BGP, over OSPF or HSRP. So suppose we can tune hello timer obviously, but what happen if we running something known as HSRP? So suppose we have two router, let me use my marker. If we have a two router, this is the DSL1, DSL2 router connecting to the ISP, and this goes to the LAN, and these are the PC or some other devices connect inside LAN, and both router performing first hop redundancy protocol. So in middle we have a switch or some sorts of other device like repeater. So we can enable, take example, suppose this is the active router which is forwarding all traffic. So if we enable BFD over this interface using HSRP, within millisecond your traffic going to forward on other router using other router because something went wrong in this network. So you can use in order to faster convergence in HSRP, BGP, ISIS and OSPF. So one more example I would like to show. Control Z. What I'm going to do, going to implement OSPF as well because the command is little bit different. So no shut down on all router. Make sure they are no router enhance IGRP1. So I turn off routing process from both router as we can see, and let me implement OSPF router OSPF1 network 0.0.0 area 0. Now we have already configured BFD out both interface. What we need to do, we need to attach BFD on OSPF, which is the routing protocol. So the configuration is little bit straightforward. BFD, and then after in OSPF we need to enable in all interface. We cannot choose a specific excuse me, or particular interface. So again, BFD all interface. Let's verify the neighbor adjacency. Do so BFD neighbor. Excuse me. Do so BFD neighbor. As we can see, we do have neighbor adjacency. So again, I'm going to show the same thing. This time I'm going to select F0/4 interface. Do so IP interface brief include only up interface. Make sure my both interface is up. Yes, exactly. If I'm going to shut it down, immediately it come to know by BFD the neighbor is no longer available. So this is all about which I like to share with you people. This is all about this video.